Do me for hold this L.
Hold this L.
Hold this L.
Welcome to Hold This L with your host, Lonnie and Cappel. What's going on, man? What's going on?
What up, bro? Ready to dive into this show, man. What's going on with you?
I'm good, man. Another good day of football. Basketball just getting started. And, so again, we got a lot to talk about. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's not even keep them waiting because I know they ready to hear about these fantasy picks. See how well everybody did or whatever is how this football season went. Before we get to football, let's talk about basketball. We on the cusp of finals. Like two teams, knowing who the two teams are. We already know who one team is. That's the LA Lakers, and we got the Heat and Celtics playing tonight to determine, well, possibly to determine who's gonna go. If the Heat win, then it's gonna be Heat and Lakers. If the Heat lose, then they got one more game against the Celtics. So let's talk about this Lakers, Nuggets series real quick. I said 5-1. I just happened to be right on this one. Lakers did it. Denver got a lucky win, in my opinion, which is what I thought because a lot of times that's what happens. Finals, even somebody's overwhelmed. What was your thoughts on the series, though, man?
It pretty much went exactly how I expected it to go. Um, Besides the one win, of course, I expected it to be a sweep. Um, but of course, with that Denver Nuggets team, um, it wasn't no surprise that they did pull one out. Big shout out to them, Jamal Murray, Jokic. But when it came down to it, man, they were just they didn't have enough. People kept saying, they were in the perfect situation, down 3-1. To come back hit. No, no. It was a whole new ball game, and we clearly saw. And it's not very often that LeBron James, when he got closeout games, that he don't finish them. So, I mean, it was pretty much new. I wasn't even really as bought into that game yesterday as I usually would be, because in my mind it was over. I mean, I had there was never any doubt in my mind during and after that game or before that I even thought the Nuggets had a chance of even winning another game.
For sure. Yeah, I was just like you, man. I wasn't really invested in the game. I kind of felt like it was going to end yesterday, and it did. I followed it, on Gamecast, and I watched parts of it, but I didn't watch the whole thing through and through. And even though it was parts of the game where Denver like closed the gap, never felt like they was going to win. Like they
So,
even at the very end, it was like maybe 4 points out with a few minutes left. Still never felt like they was gonna win. LeBron went beast mode on them yesterday. He did his classic closeout game, thing where he just come and show his brilliance, his dominance as a basketball player. Fourth quarter, 9 straight points. His jump shot was on at the end of the game. He showed why he the best player in the world. Um, I saw a stat, man. I saw a stat yesterday that showed LeBron James. LeBron James has 10 finals appearances.
yeah.
That is more finals appearances than every NBA team except for the Lakers, Celtics, and Golden State Warriors. But the Golden State Warriors have 11 finals appearances as a franchise. And then LeBron James is 10th on that list by himself fourth on that list by himself with 10 finals appearances. That's an incredible stat, man. One man
It's
has
amazing,
that
bro.
many appearances compared to actual whole franchises that have existed since what 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever it is. That's crazy. That just shows you his level of greatness and how long he sustained it and still doing so at the age of 35, the tender age of 35, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Dude's
Um,
amazing, man. He's amazing. He a monster. 38-point triple double. It's crazy.
I know, I
It's
know,
crazy, bro.
yeah. I look forward to next year, to see how well he plays at the age of 36. But and then we got this series that's going on right now, Celtics Heat. I still feel like it's a series. A lot of people feel like it's over with. I don't. I think the Heat is going to win the series, but I feel like Celtics going to win tonight, and they get 3-3, and we're gonna get a game 7 on Tuesday. What you think?
Well, I've been, I've been a firm believer in the Celtics in this series, but I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. He need to close it out tonight. They do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like they will. I really do. I feel like the Heat are going to close it out tonight. But I'll be honest with you, if for some reason they don't, I feel like the chances swing majorly in the Celtics' favor. Um, in that game seven, I think you got the more experienced players. You got more talent, and you're depending on the Hero and Duncan and those guys. Even though they are very very good players, still rookies coming into a game seven. A lot of pressure on your back. Um, so I really feel like Miami need to close it out tonight. If they don't, the Celtics will win.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you when you say that if they need to close it out tonight because the odds is definitely not in their favor. But it's just so hard to beat a team three times in a row, you know.
Right.
Uh, and that's what the Celtics would have done if they win. They would have beaten the team three times in a row. So that's why even if they win tonight, I feel like the Heat will close it out on Tuesday. But we will see. We will see. So let's go ahead and jump into football. We had some really good games today, some not so good. So we're just gonna go through, talk about the scores and talk about the fantasy production from each team. Pay attention because you may get some ideas of value plays and people that you want to put in your lineup. Even though we're gonna touch on that when we release our show on Friday of our fantasy special show on Friday. All right, so let's start with the Rams and Bills. This is a really good game, man. Josh Allen, I gotta stop hating on this dude. Not hating. I haven't said anything bad, but in my mind, I say things bad when I'm ready to pick my teams.
Right.
Because I'm like, I'm not playing Josh Allen. Nah, he 8,000 something. I mean, he can move the ball with his legs. He can get points with his legs. But he played against the Dolphins. Played against the Jets. The Rams got a good defense. Josh Allen seemed legit this year, man. Seemed legit. I got to get that boy his props because he did the damn thing today. I mean, he put up with 4 touchdowns, 311 yards in the air. On the ground, he didn't really do much, but he did have a rushing touchdown. He had 4 touchdowns in the air. I mean, the Rams' defense is legit. They got good pieces. They got two good corners. They got a good front defensive line. Put pressure on the quarterback, and he just showed his elusiveness today. I saw several plays where he was just like getting around people, getting away from him, not getting hit and not even going down, getting the ball out of his hands. He had one interception. He just looked real good, and I feel like moving forward, he's definitely somebody to keep on your radar. And I feel like the Bills. Oh, not to mention that he won the game in the last seconds.
Yeah.
He came back, even though they shouldn't have let the Rams come back because they was winning that game like 20 something to 3, and let the Rams come back. He came through. But yeah, Josh Allen played well today. His receiving core came through. Cole Beasley did well. Diggs did okay. He had a touchdown, 49 yards. Singletary was the lone man in the backfield. He had a pretty decent day with the combination of yards in the air and on the ground. You got any thoughts about this team and this game?
Um, they went exactly opposite of what I thought it would. Thought it would be a defensive game, completely. It did not. Like I said, Josh Allen, dude's a beast. The person I will point out though, from a fantasy perspective, two people actually. Cooper Cup, finally made himself just finally showed up and actually
Yeah,
became fantasy relevant this week, and also Darrell Henderson.
yeah,
After that first week, we all was thinking Malcolm Brown, and the last 2 weeks has been Henderson, and I'm very happy and pleased to say I have him in two of my yearly long out of three yearly long fantasy leagues. Because that's I drafted
yeah,
him, just so happened to draft him in two and drop him in one, and was able to go back and get him before anybody realized that he was going. I was like, because even after last week, I went back and picked him up in the league. I was like, I don't know if he's gonna be the man, but I'm gonna keep him on my roster. I was stupid to drop him. I'm gonna keep him on my roster till I find out for sure. And it's kind of looking like he's the guy. I don't know what was going on in week one or whatever, but he seems in the last couple of weeks he's leading the backfield and carries. And maybe after that second week, how well he did, he just kind of overtook um, Malcolm Brown. But I mean, I'm glad to have him.
yeah. I think today was very telling because even though Henderson performed better than Malcolm Brown, they were about an even split with carries, with touches. Today was different. Like Henderson had 20 carries for 114 yards. Malcolm Brown only had 7. It still remains to be seen if this was a hot hand situation or if Darrell Henderson is actually going to be the man moving forward. I'm still a little skeptical from a daily fantasy perspective. Heck, even a regular fantasy if you have them, because it was no Cam Makers. So knowing once we see how this rotation goes with Cam Makers back in the fold, I think the picture will be much clearer. But if Cam Makers is not playing again next week, I will feel comfortable saying roll with Darrell Henderson. I think that he's shown that he's definitely going to be favored above Malcolm Brown. And these last 2 weeks, the numbers definitely show it, especially with the touch count. Um, yeah, so next game, we got the Washington football team, the cursed Washington football team against the Cleveland Browns. I say cursed because I feel like ain't no good gonna come to that Washington football team until they owner admit that he was wrong for not changing their name from the Redskins to another name, and until pressure was put on him by sponsors. So I feel like they're gonna be cursed until he comes out and apologizes. But
Not gonna
anyways,
happen.
yeah, I know he's not gonna ever do it. I feel sorry for Dwayne Haskins having to be a part of that franchise. I feel like he got so much talent, and it's gonna be wasted, and he gonna end up being one of those quarterbacks that we never really get to see shine as a result of it. But outside of that, the Washington football team does what they do, and that is suck. I I didn't have any shares of anybody from this team. I had a little bit of McLaurin, and McLaurin himself had a decent game. He had 83 yards in the air, didn't get any touchdowns. Two touchdowns with the Dontrell Inman. People don't get excited about that. He only had 38 yards receiving on 3 catches. Two of them just happened to be touchdowns. He's not somebody that you want to go pick up off the waiver wire, or, well, you can pick him up if you want to if you're talking about regular fantasy. Not somebody that I'm going to look forward to playing. I'm picking up on my team. I think that was pretty much a fluke. Pay attention to Gibson, Antonio Gibson. He scored for the second time this week. I think he's kind of getting his feet up under him. He may be somebody to look at. But outside of that, Washington terrible. And the Browns, of course, Baker Mayfield didn't play great, but he didn't have to because the defense dominated. They got 3 interceptions. They had several sacks. Nick Chubb, he did well, running for over 100 yards, had 2 scores. You didn't get much from the receiving core because you didn't get much from Baker Mayfield in the air with 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. Anything you want to add to this game?
Oh, not a whole lot. Kind of went. I went the way I expected. Nick Chubb had a great game. I would have liked to see more from Odell Beckham, but like you say, that kind of goes hand in hand with Baker Mayfield. But I guess when you got Nick Chubb running the ball the way he's running the ball, you don't really have to do a whole lot. So there ain't a whole lot to kind of touch on that game. It was pretty much. I will say this: the Browns have a winning record for the first time since 2014.
Well, that ain't saying much because it's early, but you're right.
Yeah,
It, it
hey, give
it's
them
it's
love. You got to give
truth.
them credit where
It's
credit's
truth.
due. Hey,
It's truth.
got
Yeah,
to try to point out something good.
you're right about that. Move on to the next game. Titans and Vikings. This was actually a pretty good game. It came down to the wire. The Vikings put it out at the very end. Kirk Cousins actually came to play a little bit today. He had a decent line, even though he
Kind of.
made a few mistakes. He had 251 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Dalvin Cook came to play. I was wrong about him today. Well, not wrong. I said that, hey, you got Devin Cook, you play him, but I liked other people better value. Well, he put up points today that you probably needed to win some money, because
Yeah,
he had 181 yards on the ground with 1 touchdown, and through the air he only had 18, but there were 181 on the ground. That's huge. So he had a monster day. Justin Jefferson, LSU special. That boy came today. He came today, killed it. 7 receptions, 175 yards, 1 TD. He ain't on nobody's waiver wire. I already know. I can tell you that because people probably drafted him to put on a bench. So he's probably gone. But you can check. If you have like a 10-team or 8-team league, which if you play in the 8-team league, then why are you playing fantasy? But if you play in the 10-team league, you may be able to pick Justin Jefferson off the bench because there's so much depth in wide receiver. He may just have been sitting on, may not have got picked up. So you may want to check him out. He's going to be a legit number 2. And I think there's gonna be several games to come where he leads the team in scores and yards and targets, just like today with leading Adam Thielen, because he is the real deal. He's a receiver, and he's definitely going to be somebody that name you're going to hear. So he had a hell of a game today. Uh, Probably if you had him in daily fantasy, good for you. You probably less than 1% on. Adam Thielen didn't have a great game. He did get a score. I thought that he was going to kill it today. He only had 5 targets to Justin Jefferson's 9. But hey, that's how it goes. And the Titans, Derrick Henry had a good day. Derrick Henry he's been consistent. If you look at his games, he had over 100 the first game, 80 something the second game. Today he got 2 scores, which is what set him apart from those other 2 games. So he had 2 touchdowns, 119 yards on the ground. Tannehill had 321 yards, but no touchdowns. This guy Raymond, he threw the ball 3 times for 118 yards. I do not know him. Do not know him, but he's not somebody that I would recommend that you just go and look and put a whole lot of stock into. AJ Brown will be back soon. Corey Davis had a decent game. Jonnu Smith, I said he's gonna finish as a top 5 tight end. I still stand by that. 5 catches, 61 yards. That boy, the Tannehill spread the ball out a lot. He threw it to 10 people. No, he threw it to 10 people, but he only had completions to 9 of them. So he definitely was spreading the ball out, something that Tannehill doesn't do too often. But the Titans, they win the game at the end with a field goal. Anything you want to add?
Um, Not a whole lot. Did expect Derrick Henry to have a good game today. The one thing I will say to add to this game, everybody pretty much did. Like I said, like you say, I will say I expected Thielen to have a few more yards and a few more targets. But when Justin Jefferson going off the way he did, it kind of explains why he didn't.
Yeah,
So we called that we just expected it to be him against that defense, the Titans defense, but it ended up being Jefferson. Um, the one thing I will add, like you were saying about the 10-team leagues, y'all can go look. He's not on nobody. He's on somebody's roster. He's not on the waiver wire. If you're in a 10-team league and you go find Justin Jefferson on the waiver wire and you're not winning that league, stop playing fantasy because you're not in a very good league. If Justin Jefferson is on the waiver wire in any league you're in, you're not in a good league. I'm just telling y'all right now. So
yeah,
I'm just putting that out there. Now if these 10-team leagues didn't have benches, that may be different. But with there being that there's usually about 6 to 7 bench players, he's on somebody's team.
yeah. And I second that. Yeah, your team garbage if he's not on somebody's team, straight up garbage. Uh, Raiders and Patriots. Wow, this was a good game from a football standpoint, especially if you're a Raiders fan. I was disappointed because from the fantasy perspective, everybody that you wanted to do well did not, and everybody that you thought about not didn't think about at all did well. Starting with the Raiders, um, if you thought Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller were the picks, you were wrong. Josh Jacobs did not do well from a fantasy perspective. 71 yards on the ground, no touchdowns, no catches in the air. 3 catches for 12 yards. Darren Waller, Darren who? Because that's
Right.
what you would have thought if you were watching this game. And I said that these weren't good picks. I said that these weren't good picks when we talked about them in daily fantasy because Belichick does one thing really good when he game plans is he takes away your power. He takes away what you normally go to. And he took away the run game. He took away Darren Waller. But Hunter Renfro, who I think is somebody to pay attention to. This is one of those people that you should be paying attention to. He's probably not on anybody's waiver wire either. He may be on the waiver wire if you're in the 10-team league, but if you're in one of those 12-team leagues or more where like the third receiver has value, he's not going to be able to be picked up. But he had six catches on 9 targets, 84 yards and a touchdown. He's actually a pretty good receiver and he has good repertoire with Derek Carr. So he had a good game. And then on the flip side, Cam Newton really just disappointed me from a fantasy perspective. I thought he was going to do so much more. He didn't throw the ball well today. Edelman didn't have a good game today. Um, N'Keal Harry didn't have a good game. The near Bird, none of the receivers had good games. None of the tight ends had good games. Sony Michelle had 9 carries for 117 yards, but Rex Burkhead, on the other hand, had 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
who who would have thought that those two would be the ones that had the good games? Sony Michelle had 117 yards through the air. I mean, on the ground. Had 2 catches for 23 yards. Rex Burkhead had 7 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown, and 6 carries for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that pretty much was the gist of the game as far as a fantasy perspective. Wasn't a great fantasy game. You look at that defense for the Patriots, and they had a decent game. But outside of that, just really disappointed me just today. That was one of my top plays for fantasy. Most importantly, with Cam Newton, and I thought that was going to be based off of what he did against Seattle. I thought he was going to come in and throw the ball well, run the ball good, and that's just not what happened.
Well, I don't think he had to. I mean, it was just
Well,
Rex
see, this
Burkhead.
the
They
thing.
actually found
No,
somebody
see
that.
but all that happened late in the game. Like Cam Newton didn't play well. Rex Burkhead got all his touchdowns. I know those last two came in the fourth quarter, but the first touchdown, I think they all came in the second half. He was passing the ball. But he wasn't completing those passes. Like if he was playing well, throughout the first half, that game script probably would have been different. He was just missing passes. He had some calls where he was running the ball and he would get 1 yard, 2 yards. Just didn't just like early in the game, like at halftime. I think the score was 13-3 or 13-10. Yeah, because the Raiders scored at the very end in the second quarter, so it was 13-10. So you look at that final score and you're like, oh, it wasn't even close. It was fairly close all the way until maybe the fourth quarter, and then the Patriots took off. So I just think he had a bad game. That was one of the games that I was paying attention to because I had a lot of Cam Newton. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? So yeah, just disappointed in the fantasy production. But other than that, I mean, they played a good team game, so that's what counts, I guess. 49ers and the Giants. Did you happen to see that game?
no, not able to see it. I did follow it though. It was a weird game, man. It was the Giants. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just that's just
yeah.
the gist of it. I mean,
There's nothing to talk about on the Giants side. That was
th-
complete dud. If you played Giants, you were disappointed today.
this is the thing. We came in there as the favorites. You know how bad your team got to be for a team that's missing their starting quarterback, their starting running back, their starting tight end, their starting cornerback, basically half their starters, and they
Hmm.
still favored to beat you. You bad. You're really bad. So you know we put up 36. We put up 36 points, but it was against the Giants. There's not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, it was a good game
Yeah.
for us, but I mean, it was against the Giants. Nick Mullins played well enough. McKinnon played well. We got a couple of rushing touchdowns from Jeff Wilson Jr. Um, Shout out, I did call that this past week, y'all. If y'all listened to me and y'all took that note, it paid off for you. But other than that, not a whole lot, man. I don't really have a
Yeah.
whole lot for this game.
Yeah, Nick Mullins actually played better than well. He had 343 yards and a touchdown. Again, it was against the Giants. No, we don't know how long Garoppolo's going to be out. Maybe it was just this game. George Kittle probably will be back next game because he was close to playing this game, so he probably will be back. But if he doesn't, Jordan Reed went out, so that's something to note.
Bruh,
He went out too, and it looked like he was going to have a good game because Nick Mullins is going to him early, and you know, I mean, it is what it is. Jordan Reed has an injury history, usually concussions, but nonetheless an injury. So,
yeah, he gonna be my Mr. Glass. I know James Conner is yours. He gonna be my Mr. Glass.
yeah.
Burn me
but
a
but
little
but
bit today in DFS.
yeah. But Brandon Ayuk actually had a pretty good game. He's being
Hmm.
used in the run game, so they used him the way they use Debo with those end arounds, and he had 31 yards on the ground, 70 yards through the air. Not bad for his not a bad fantasy game for the day. But overall, you didn't really have anybody outside of Jeff Wilson Jr. who actually killed it because Jeff Wilson Jr. had those 2 touchdowns.
Right.
He had 50 yards in the air, 40 yards, no, 50 yards in the air, and then you add those 2 touchdowns. That gives him a good fantasy day. McKinnon fantasy day was good simply because he was so cheap. He was cheap, so he ended up having a good fantasy day with his 1 touchdown and 38 yards on the ground. He had a few yards in the air, 39 yards, so he had a decent production day. I really felt like he was gonna have a better day. I felt like it was gonna be better, but it is what
He
it is.
would have. If he got hurt, he would have had a better day. I think. I
Yeah.
definitely think he would have had a better day if he wouldn't have got hurt,
Bengals, Eagles, third 23-23 tie.
bro.
Like if you watch the video, you just saw me roll my eyes. The reason why is because I'm like thinking about Carson Wentz and how long he gonna have that job. I don't think it's gonna be long. If you look at his fantasy, you like, okay, Carson Wentz had a decent game. Yeah, he should have had about 30 points. He was able to salvage some because he ran the ball pretty well today. He had like 70 yards on the ground. But again, making mistakes. He threw two interceptions. A lot of errant throws, just did not look well. Miles Sanders had a good game on the ground. I was disappointed in his fantasy production because I expected him to have about a good 7 or 8 targets that were been more productive. He had 8 targets, but he only caught 4 for 12 yards, so it wasn't working for him. When you look at the other running backs that played against the Bengals this year, they did much better through the air, but they did about the same on the ground. He had 95 yards, which is not bad, almost 100 yards on the ground. But Carson Wentz is just not looking good, man. Carson was not looking good. You know, uh, Jalen Hurts. I don't know if Jalen Hurts got any games before today. He played 2 games. He got in for a few snaps. Obviously, they were running plays. I'm wondering how that's going to look. Kind of reminds me of how they did Lamar Jackson with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco started off the season after a few games. Lamar Jackson would come in, and you knew that they were going to be running plays, but possibly throwing plays, but he was going to like use his legs, and that's what the plays were. I think he actually fumbled on the second time he was in the game. I feel like that's like writing on the wall for Carson Wentz. I really do. Let's slowly acclimate Jalen Hurts in, and let's see how well Carson Wentz does. Maybe this puts pressure on him to play better. But if he doesn't, then we got our second round pick, who we feel like could be the man for this team, and we go ahead and give him an opportunity to play towards the end of the year if we don't have the opportunity. With Baltimore, of course, Flacco got hurt, so they had no choice. But don't look good for Wentz for me at all. What you think?
Um, I mean, I think he'll have to seriously hang himself because they did pay him all that money, so they ain't gonna just yank him. More of the Joe Flacco situation. We can kind of both, I think, agree on the fact that he was already 1 foot out the door when they drafted Lamar. That's not the same instance in my opinion with Carson Wentz. Um, I I I do think if he keeps the string, his leash will be shortened. But if he has a game or two good, I mean, I don't think right now at this point they're saying we need to start thinking about putting Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz. I don't think
I
it's
do.
there yet. I
I
just
do.
I just think when you invest that much money, you don't pull the string that quick. Um,
This is the thing, though. You got to think about it from the coach's perspective. The coach don't get that opportunity to stay with the team. Like Doug Peterson has had 2 years after the Super Bowl that were not good. Yeah,
mhm,
they made the playoffs last year, but they didn't make the playoffs in a good season. They just happened to be the best of 4 terrible teams or have the best record. And now they're starting off pretty bad, even worse than some of the teams in that division. The Cowboys, even Washington is looking better than the Eagles as a football team because they beat the Eagles. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm Doug Peterson, if I'm the coach, I'm like, I can't wait for him to get it together. I don't care how much money he getting paid. That decision is going to come from upstairs. That decision is going to come
yeah,
from upstairs. The
right,
decision that we invested money in him, we got to keep giving him opportunities. You the coach, you got to get it right, blah, blah, blah. But Doug Peterson may be sitting looking differently. That's why I say I'm worried for Carson Wentz because the coach made a decision to put Jalen Hurts in the game after 2 games. Like, to me, that says something. It's like let's get his feet wet because he may be coming in soon. We may be needing him. And I agree with you. It's not exactly the same situation as Baltimore because when they drafted Lamar, it was already in their head that Joe Flacco was on his way out.
right,
I think they drafted Jalen Hurts as insurance because Carson Wentz gets injured a lot.
right, right,
But his play has changed. See, it went from being injured a lot and not being available to being available and playing bad. So I feel like that insurance policy, while it was not meant for him to be pulled because of his bad play, it's not hard to look at it like that. It's not hard to look at it that way now. Like his play is just terrible. We got to be thinking about the future, but we'll see. On the Bengals side, Joe Burrow didn't have a terrible game. Actually had a pretty good game. Over 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Um, Tyler Boyd clearly has eclipsed AJ Green in this on this team. Not saying that Tyler Boyd is better than AJ Green. It could just be simply a chemistry thing. But AJ Green is just not getting. They just don't have that same chemistry. Tyler Boyd got 13 targets to AJ Green's 6. And Tyler Boyd really was looking at T. Higgins today. T. Higgins had he's their rookie from Clemson. He had 9 targets for 40 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. So somebody to be paying attention to. Anytime you got a rookie quarterback who is throwing to like giving, I mean, that has a lot of targets for certain wide receivers. That's a consistent thing you can pay attention to for the whole year
Hmm.
because a rookie quarterback is going to look at people that they trust more than a veteran quarterback. So Tyler Boyd is somebody to pay attention to in daily fantasy moving forward on a regular basis when you're talking about receivers on their team. AJ Green, I'm a little worried for him. His time may be limited in Cincinnati. They may be looking to trade him soon.
Or releasing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because right now you're not gonna get a whole lot for him. But I will say this, man. I'm rooting for Joe Burrow to get that first win, man. Need my
Me
boy to get
too.
that first.
Me
He
too.
playing well, man. He's playing very
Speaking of
well,
Joe Burrow, and we talking about him
bruh,
because just in case people don't know, we both LSU fans, so that's why we talking about Joe Burrow. But speaking of LSU, oh my God, the drop off from this kid Brennan. Oh
bruh,
my, he played so terrible yesterday.
bruh. Have you?
LSU like they lost to Mississippi State.
Yeah.
They gave Mississippi State. They gave up the defense gave up 44 points.
And I'm gonna tell you, it makes you realize how important Derek Stingley Jr. is too. Bruh,
Ooh,
we he the best player on our team.
yeah,
We have him. They ain't throwing the ball around like that because one side of the field is shut down. But neither here nor there. Bro, I know you've seen that meme before. You can appreciate this. I know you're a Dave Chappelle fan, but I know you done seen that meme where he kind of looked like the crackhead.
yeah.
And
Like
got the
Romo.
white lips. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said, man, had the meme on Facebook. I saw, said, man, y'all got any more of them Joe Burrows, man?
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like,
Bruh, it's
God
crazy,
damn.
man. It's crazy.
I'm like, this that right there should tell you how good. I mean, it's a combination of a few things. Combination of a few things. We lost our offensive coordinator, so that's something. Then we lost Joe Burrow, that's something. We didn't have the best player, that's something. We lost Justin Jefferson, that's something. So we lost Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's something. But usually we just fill in the gaps in those positions.
Did you know
Quarterback has
Jamar
been our
Chase wasn't
Achilles
playing?
heel.
Did you know
I
Jamar
I
Chase
I
was not
I
playing?
I
I did
knew
not know he
I
opted
knew he
out at the
wasn't
last minute.
playing. I knew he wasn't playing yesterday when I was putting together a college fantasy football lineup and I wanted to play him and he wasn't available. That's how I found out. I didn't realize he opted out until at that moment. So you know what? I'm not putting a lot of stock into this season because of the opt outs because they didn't really have the same training camp and schedule. Like I'm not putting a lot into the season. I'm putting a lot into that loss. Actually, college football for me is not important this year. It's just not. And it was before the LSU game. I wasn't really following college football. I'm trying to get myself into it. And the way I did that was by playing daily. Like, okay, let me play a little daily. That's how I get myself into it because it forces me to like keep up with the scores. But I don't think college football is going to be something that I'm really into this year. Um, Texans and Pittsburgh. I was going to say Texans and Houston. Texans and the Steelers. That was a good game. It definitely went a little different than what I thought. I thought honestly because the Texans been playing so bad, I thought the Steelers was going to handle them pretty good. And for a moment there, it looked like the Texans were going to win that game, but the Steelers did come through. Nothing major in this game. I got to give it to you because you said James Conner was a good play. After you said that and I started doing my research, I was like, I can't let my personal feelings dictate should I if I play James Conner. And I actually had a good bit of him and he actually paid off. He had a good game, over 100 yards rushing, a touchdown in the air. He had what about 40 something yards?
Yeah, 4 for 40.
Pull it up now.
We had
Yeah,
four
40
receptions, 40
yards.
yard.
So he had a pretty good game. I think moving forward, James Conner probably is a good play. I still am going to be a little skeptical playing him though. This was such a smash spot for him because of the team he was playing against. I had to I couldn't deny putting him in several of my teams on daily fantasy. But outside of him, there was really nobody that I really felt like lit it up. Eric Ebron probably had a good game. Juju Smith-Schuster had a decent game. 43 yards in the air, so a touchdown. Ebron had 52 yards, a touchdown. On the Texans team, nobody was really, that stood out. Well, Randall Cobb stood out. I'm not gonna lie. He had that for his price. If you played him, he did well. Thing is every week it's a guessing game with that receiving core.
It
Like
is.
every week when we talk about the Texans, it's going to be Deshaun Watson and guess who you think he's gonna throw the ball to. Because there's nobody that stands apart. You can call Will Fuller the number one, but Brandon Cooks could be the number one. Randall Cobb could end up having a good day. Kenny Stills could end up having a good day. The tight end Jordan Akins could end up having a good day. There's nobody that stands out. And David Johnson is really dependent upon if they play on a team that has a weak rush defense, in my opinion. And the Steelers was not that today, which is why I didn't play him, and it showed. He did not have a good game. He had a touchdown, but not a good game. You got any thoughts on these two teams?
No, to be honest with you, when it comes to Houston for me, um, it's all about Deshaun Watson. It's the only person on Houston's team that I even want to consider playing any kind of fantasy with. I don't want to. I don't want to touch the receivers because you never know who is going to be neither 1 week from another, but he's going to be consistent. That's the only person that. Now for the Steelers, on the other hand, I did stack. It didn't work out for me because you had a lot of people score today. But I did stack Big Ben with James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster. Can you believe I stacked them three and didn't win no money? Um, it just goes to show you how many people scored today and how many the different people that were getting in the end zone that don't normally get in the end zone. But I really feel like Ben Roethlisberger is gonna have a comeback year. I think he elevates, and I want to point out that Deontay Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
he got hurt today. He was in concussion protocol. So that keep an eye on that coming up with this upcoming week, and of course we'll divulge a little bit more into it on the show for Friday. But if he's out, that boosts Juju Smith-Schuster, Eric Ebron. Those people had better games and showed up because I think they had more targets and more opportunities with Deontay being out. I think that's something to just kind of keep an eye on also.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that. Two words, Chris Claypool. That is the person that I'm going to be looking to talk about a lot. And
James
replace
Washington played well.
Deontay. No, James Washington is somebody that I think everybody's going to automatically go to.
Yeah,
But I'm gonna talk
yeah.
about Chris Claypool when we come back on next week, well, later on in this week, because I think that he may be somebody to pay attention to while Deontay Johnson is out, if it's that type of injury where he has to miss. Jets Colts. I don't really have much to say about this game. The Colts did what they were supposed to do. I still was a little disappointed. I thought this was going to be a smash spot for T.Y. Hilton with Parrish Campbell being out and them looking to get him jump started. He only had 3 catches for 54 yards. I was actually a little disappointed in Jonathan Taylor too. I thought he was in a smash spot to like have about 20 something carries for over 100 something yards. He only had 54 yards on 15 carries. No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong person. 59 yards on 13 carries. He did get a touchdown, which helped. But overall, Phillip Rivers threw the ball 21 times. I'm like, of course, it's one of those games where you didn't need to do much. From a coaching perspective, I understand the play calling. But from a fantasy perspective, I definitely did not expect the game script to go that way. So I know a lot of people were disappointed in that because I'm pretty sure Jonathan Taylor was pretty chalky. Uh, but I don't have anything to say about that game. I will really not have much to say about any team that play against the Jets because the Jets, they just suck.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't have a whole lot to say about it. I mean, the only thing I'm gonna say is you look at the score and you like, what the heck happened? See, I'm not real disappointed, and I'm not taking too much into account in the game as far as T.Y. Hilton and Jonathan Taylor. That being said, is because they had 36 points. The defense just dominated. Jonathan Taylor and T.Y. Hilton didn't have to do much. I mean, Phillip Rivers had 17 completions. Jonathan Taylor ran the ball 13 times, and they had 36 points.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, even though he had 59, he averaged 4.5. T.Y. Hilton, actually, I think he was on his way to having a good game. If you look at it, he had 3 receptions on 3 targets, but nobody had a lot of targets. Naheem Hines had the most targets. I
Yeah.
just, looking at that game, it was more about the Colts defense than it was about the Colts offense. I think that's so. I wouldn't take too much into account of the non-production from the offensive players. It just came down to the fact that the defense had two touchdowns. So I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, they just dominated them, man.
And that's what you say is true. You know what I'm saying? The defense dominated them. They had what, three defensive scores, I think, two interceptions for a return, and then Sam Darnold was sacked in the end zone, so that's a safety. So you're right about that part. But the one thing that makes me a little concerned, well, one, I'm already concerned about T.Y. Hilton because even before this game with a script like that, he didn't really do well. It's as obviously they don't have that chemistry yet. Hopefully they get it, but more about Jonathan Taylor because see, this is a type of game where if you told me, oh, this is a defensive game, they killed him defensively, I would say, well, the running back had a good game. Because they didn't see the need to throw, so they kept the ball on the ground, didn't want to force mistakes. He only had 13 carries. They gave 9 to Wilkins off the bench. They gave 7 to Naeem Hines. Why are you spreading it out? Like, like that something. What that tells me is that you don't want to put a heavy load on him. And if you don't want to put a heavy load on him, that tells me that moving forward, you're trying to get these other running backs acclimated so you can use them. And maybe I'm wrong, but it makes me wonder how much I want to use Jonathan Taylor moving forward for daily fantasy. That's so I'm a little worried from that perspective. Because it was like they had 36 points, granted, but when you look at those points, like at halftime the score was 17-7. At the end of the third quarter, that's when it was 31-7. Between the first and third quarters, I feel like Jonathan Taylor, if they was like riding him as a running back because they was leading, he would have had about 18 to 20 carries. And then maybe in the fourth quarter when it's clearly over with, that's when you throw in Naheem Hines and Wilkins to finish the game off because maybe you don't want him to get hurt. So, I'm just kind of like,
I mean, I kind of think that's a
picking
lot.
it apart.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of carries for 3 quarters, 20 carries. Um, 13 carries through 3 quarters, I don't think it's bad. I mean, it's an average of about 4 or 5 carries a
He
quarter.
had
But
26. We had 26 last game, and they smashed Minnesota.
yeah, but my thing, yeah, and I agree, but the game was close. This is my thing. He's their workhorse, in my opinion. He's the guy. Marlon Mack's gone for the year. So once you had a solidified lead, I'm not running him much. He's my bell cow. I'm gonna put these other guys in, and I ain't talking about
But
Hines as much as I'm talking about. I'm listening to what you're saying about who would you say got 7 carries?
Hines got 7. Wilkins got 9.
Wilkins. Okay, has Wilkins? How much has he played this year?
I would have to go back and look, but
But
I'm
but
not
that was kind
100%
of
sure.
yeah. But that question was kind of rhetorical. I hadn't heard him very much. So to even have 7 carries this game, I felt like he was just kind of spotted, put in toward the end. I just don't feel like they wanted to give. I don't read too much into him only having 13 carries just because of the way the game script went.
But see, that's why I say Vikings. They beat the Vikings like 28-3. So that's why I'm comparing the two games when he had 26 last week against the Vikings and he had 13 this time against the Jets. Like I know the game is not exactly the same, but I'm just looking at that like 26. You say 13 is not that much in 3 quarters, and you're right because he could have finished the game with about 20 if he would have ran all the way through the fourth. But 26 carries in a blowout to 13 carries and pretty much an equal blowout. I just made me kind of wonder. That's all. It made me kind of wonder if they looked at those carries as like that's too many. We don't want him to run the ball that much, and they kind of changed up the touches. But anyways, I don't. I mean, moving forward, I'm just talking about if I'm looking at daily fantasy and somebody to play, that may be in the back of my mind when it comes to touches when I'm making a decision on him and somebody else. That's really why I'm pointing that out. He's definitely the
It
workhorse
just
for that
depends on
team.
his price.
You know,
If his price
yeah.
stays as low as it is,
At draft,
he's a lot.
well, at DraftKings it was 7,000, so that's a totally different.
Oh, got
And
you,
FanDuel
got
is
you.
6,700, which is decent. Um, but Panthers and Chargers. So I talked about Mike Davis. I said he was going to be chalk. I was wrong about that. He was not chalk. But what I was not wrong about is him being used very similar to Christian McCaffrey. He was used the same way they used Christian McCaffrey, and it paid off because he had 45 yards in the air, 8 catches, 1 touchdown, 46 on the ground. That's a pretty good day, you know, especially for somebody that was only like $6,000 on FanDuel and 5,100 on DraftKings. So if you played him, it paid off because he definitely gave you the value and more that that what you wanted from him. Outside of that, no, nothing to rave about with anybody else on the Panthers, and the Chargers actually did not have a good day today because they lost. Justin Herbert threw for over 300 yards again. I know what Anthony Lynn said about Tyrod Taylor being a starter and come back.
You can't
I
put
don't
him
believe
back
that.
in.
I
You
don't
can't
believe
put
it.
him
I
back
just
in.
can't see how you can put him back in the game with Justin Herbert playing as well as he's playing. Keenan Allen murdered it today. Austin Eckler with 11 receptions, 12 carries for 59 yards. His receptions, he had 11 for 84 yards. Caught all 11 of his targets. Keenan Allen had 19 targets. 19 targets, 13 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown. So Keenan Allen definitely was somebody that was worth putting in your lineup. I'm telling you now, I slept on this. I slept on this game. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to play Justin Herbert yet and play those players. I was wrong. I'm ready to play Keenan Allen. I'm ready to play Hunter Henry. I'm ready to play Austin Eckler. I'm ready to play any of those guys as long as Justin Herbert is a starter.
Yeah, well, let me be
Um,
clear. Be ready to play anybody against the Carolina Panthers because
and that too.
it is very clear that the Panthers are going to give up. And look, I mean, the crazy
They didn't
thing
give up a
is,
lot of
man,
points. They
that's what
gave
I
up
was going to
yards
say.
though. Yeah,
That's
they
what
didn't
I
give up
was
a lot
going to
of points
say.
today.
They only gave up 16 points,
Hmm.
but you gave up amazing fantasy days to
Yeah,
three Chargers. Bruh, Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Justin Herbert, they had great fantasy days and only put up 16 points. You know, usually your fantasy production is really boosted by scoring touchdowns. Well, they were able, and that should give you some, to just kind of piggyback off what you said about Herbert. Anybody looking at these guys, that should really give you some incentive and some excitement if you got those people on your team because the fantasy production they had and didn't even get in the end zone should really excite you. They get a couple of scores in there, man. Those guys murder it, absolutely murder it. I do want to give a shout out to Teddy Bridgewater, man. He's been playing pretty well. And I'm not
he
really talking
has.
about from fantasy perspective, but that's just in general as a football player.
Yeah.
Bridgewater has played really well, really, really well.
He's been very efficient. Today he was 22 for 28, 235 yards. The first two games, he threw for over 300 yards. Them losing the first two games had nothing to do with Bridgewater and everything to do with their defense. They were in both games. They were in both games to the end, these first two games, and the defense is really what the issue is. So Teddy Bridgewater has definitely been playing well. Talk about comeback player of the year. I guess you can't. I mean, you talk about Big Ben. He's definitely somebody who you're gonna look at as far as coming back. But Teddy Bridgewater is even though he played last year, I definitely feel like he can be in that category as well. But Justin, just want to point something out. Justin Herbert threw the ball 19 times, Keenan Allen. So remember when I said when you have a young quarterback, pay attention to who they target a lot is because that trust factor. Like veteran quarterbacks make it their business to go through progressions to know who's on the field. You see people like Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady throw to 8, 9, 10 different people all the time, right? And usually it's spread out. Five here,
Right,
four there, seven there. And then they have that one person that gets like 9 or 10 targets.
right.
But when you have somebody that's young and they're getting their feet wet, once they trust the receiver, they look for him all the time. Keenan Allen, as long as Justin Herbert is starting, Keenan Allen is worth a play every week. I don't
19
care who they
targets is
playing
absurd.
against. I don't care who they playing against. That's why DeAndre Hopkins is such a target because Kyler Murray is still a young quarterback. And he's looking to target DeAndre Hopkins because that's a trust factor. He knows he can go to him and throw the ball up and he can get it. So these young quarterbacks pay attention to those targets. Those are the people that you want to make sure you target in daily fantasy. So Keenan Allen will be on my radar for the entire year as long as Justin Herbert is starting. Tyrod Taylor starts, totally different scenario.
Right, right.
Buccaneers, Broncos. Sound like he's about to say something. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't gonna say a whole lot. 19 targets is just crazy to me. That's just going through my head. I'm just
Nah,
baffled, bro. 19 targets, that's stupid.
I
I
know,
mean, I
yeah.
don't care who you are. I mean, we were going crazy over the 15 targets. Hopkins got a couple of weeks. 19 targets,
19 targets, 13
bruh.
catches. He threw the ball 48 times. 48 times.
That mean almost half of his passes went to one dude. I mean,
Yep.
bro, that's crazy. I just
Yep.
that's all I was. It was just rattling in my head.
But what it tells me is that on the regular, Keenan Allen's going to look for Keenan Allen to have 9 to 11 targets a game
Right,
because they're going to coach him through that. They're going to coach him through focusing on one person that much.
right,
But what's going to happen is you know who he's looking for number one all the time.
right.
Uh, Buccaneers, Brady had a good game. This is his first real good game, in my opinion. He had 297 yards and 3 touchdowns. Godwin played well. He had a score, 64 yards. Scotty Miller had 3 catches for 83 yards. Scotty Miller's the new Julian Edelman. That's why I brought his name up. He clearly fits that mold of a player. The running backs did nothing. They tricked me with Leonard Fournette. I thought that after last week, they probably were going to make him the de facto number one. They didn't. Ronald Jones is still the number one. He had 13 carries to Leonard Fournette's 7. The backfield is still murky there. I don't trust it. Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns, but check this out. Mike Evans had 2 receptions for two
For 2
yards
yards.
and
And
two
oh, trust me,
touchdowns.
I got him in a couple of leagues. So
Wow.
and that goes to it go, but it goes. You know what that told me more than anything,
What's that?
that I don't trust no running backs right now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the goal line. Both of those were goal line, and he threw it to Mike Evans. One was a little slant,
Uh,
slant and
you
pick route.
you got to think about this, cuz I thought I'm going to cut you off. You got to think about this is Tom Brady. This is all he did in New England. This is about Tom Brady. I'm telling you that. Leonard Fournette could punch that ball in.
No,
They didn't give
I'm
him a
not saying.
chance.
No, I'm not. That's what
Oh,
I'm saying.
oh, you
I'm
just saying you don't
saying no.
trust
I'm
it.
saying I
Okay,
don't
yeah,
trust
I got you.
from a fantasy perspective, having those running backs, if when I get on the 1 yard line, you're gonna throw the ball to Mike Evans.
Yeah,
Not on you
yeah, I
didn't
got you.
do it
Yeah,
once. You did it twice where you're on the 1 yard line and you throw the ball to your wide receiver. Clearly you're trying to get a connection. And remember I was told you, I feel like they're gonna force that connection between Mike Evans and Tom Brady. I think that's a connection they want to evolve, because if it does, it can be unstoppable. Like as we saw today, you get those two on the goal line. You, as big as Mike Evans is and Tom Brady with his accuracy, they can be almost unstoppable. So it just kind of makes it weird. It makes it skeptical, because the first thing you would, if you would have asked me before this game started, if Tampa Bay get on the 1 yard line 2 times, what's going to happen? Leonard Fournette getting the ball. He'll have
yeah.
2 rushing touchdowns, and it just went completely opposite.
Well, I would say this, and maybe you know this already. So if you know this, then definitely come back and say something about what I'm about to say. But I wonder if they actually went to Fournette or Ronald Jones and they didn't get in, and then they made the pass to Mike Evans. Because what I don't know is that, because I didn't follow this game, so I don't know how that the actual play calling went. That would change my opinion about what I said earlier if I saw that, oh, they actually did try to get it in, they just couldn't punch it in, and then they threw the ball up to Mike Evans. But assuming that that didn't happen, I agree with you 100%. You
All
know,
right.
that's a Tom Brady thing, because I mean, I remember watching plenty of games with him where the ball is in the five, within the five, and your running game is not looking bad, and he throws a touchdown. It's something that he does. A lot of his touchdowns have come, like within the in the red zone, actually within the 5-10 yard line, between the 10 yard line and the goal line. And I don't mean you can I was about to say something that I mean, who knows if it's true. I'm like, he's 43 years old. He's trying to make a point. He's trying to, at the end of the year, he want to look at his stats and say, this is what I did. Those touchdowns matter more to a 43-year-old quarterback who got something to prove than a 25-year-old quarterback who's just trying to win. You know what I'm saying? I mean, do I think he may be thinking about stat padding? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. He chasing him right now. Him and Drew Brees are literally going back and forth when it comes to touchdowns for like the most touchdowns ever. Like they
You're
both
right.
still playing and they going back and forth. So I mean, is it a foregone conclusion that he's making calls to to submit his legacy in certain areas? you got to be ridiculously stupid if you don't think that's possibly the case. I'm not
Yeah, and to
saying it
be honest
is,
with you,
but it's definitely a possibility.
Bruce Arians like to throw the ball. Let's just
Yeah,
be
true.
honest
That's
about
true.
that
Yeah.
too. So, and look, I just want to add one more thing to that. You know, and I want to talk about this for just a quick second and won't get your opinion on it because I had an argument at work with a couple of my coworkers that were telling me, and I think hopefully you're going to find this as hilarious as I do, or maybe I'm just crazy. Told me Tom Brady was still a top 3 quarterback in the league
That's
as
not
of
even a
right now
conversation.
today.
It's not even a conversation we need to
Today,
have. You know what I would like? I hope these are people that listen to the show. The people invite them on this show. Invite them on the show if they listen, so they can talk about why that's the case, why they think that, and let's just blow that whole notion out the water. You know what I'm
I
saying?
lit him. I lit
Because
him up.
it's
I lit him up.
listen, nobody is going. Anybody that will say that Tom Brady is not an all-time great, that's ridiculous. Anybody that says that Tom Brady is not the GOAT, you can argue that depending on what your definition of the GOAT, but that's ridiculous because greatest of all time is about more about achievements and about skill set. So that's something different. But when you're
He's
talking about
that.
right now in the here and now, there's nothing that you can pull stat wise, nothing that you can pull stat wise to justify Tom Brady being a top three. There's
I told him he
almost
wasn't top
nothing.
5.
I was about to say there's almost nothing you can do to justify top 10.
I'll give him 10, but he's like 9 or 10.
You can probably argue 9 or 10, but you can't come out and just flat out even say, oh, he's top 10, no doubt. No, I guarantee you that you could probably find a case to where he's top 15. You know what I'm saying? I could probably name 10 quarterbacks. I'm not going to do it now, but I'm pretty sure I can name 10 quarterbacks that have had better seasons than he's had the last 2 seasons. And definitely right now in this moment with the way people are playing. Right now you got people who would say, "Oh no, Josh Allen ain't better than Tom Brady." Really? He not? Right
Yes, he
now?
is.
Give me Josh Allen all day. You know what I'm saying? Give me Lamar. Give me of course Patrick, Aaron Rodgers.
Bro, do you
Before I
know
said
how
I wasn't gonna
easy?
do it, I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah,
do it.
but
I'm
bro,
not gonna do it. I'm not gonna
look,
do
the thing is,
it.
you know what the thing is? It's so easy to do it.
Exactly.
Dude, do you know how quick I can rattle out 5? I'm going to do it. Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. That's 5 right there. I ain't even talking about Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, but you
It
still
was that
take you
simple.
still take you still take Ben Roethlisberger. You still take
Yes.
Dak Prescott. You'll take
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers. Like there are people that you wouldn't even put in the same category as Tom Brady overall that you will take today because of what they can do that Tom Brady cannot. You know?
Thank you. I just wanted your opinion on that, man. I hated to even bring it, but I just needed to see if we were on the same page. We can go
We
on to
can't
the
go to
next
that deep.
game, man. Yeah.
The Lions Cardinals, not much to talk about. The Lions won the game. Nobody thought that. People calm down about Phoenix as far as thinking they're like a top team. All right, they still got a lot to prove. They got some good weapons, and what people don't realize is video film matters. People see Kyler Murray with the way he's playing with DeAndre Hopkins. Now they got film to watch. Okay, they watching play calls. They watching tendencies. So a team like the Lions, it's not surprising that they beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals have yet to prove if they're a good team. They caught the 49ers off guard. Let's just be honest. And then they played a Washington Redskins football team, a Washington football team that's not very good last week. So slow your roll on the Arizona Cardinals. About to call them Phoenix Cardinals again. But what we can assume, what we do know is Kyler Murray is the truth. DeAndre
Yeah.
Hopkins, they the truth. So when you're talking about fantasy, you definitely want to look at them every week as people that you want to play. But as far as football, pump the brakes, people. The Cardinals are not a great team yet. All right. In this game though, Kyler Murray did his thing. He played well as far as fantasy goes because he was able to put the ball on the ground, ran in for a touchdown, threw 3 interceptions. But he did. But interceptions they don't count that much against you. In
Yeah.
fantasy. So the fact that he ran a touchdown in and threw for 270 yards, had 29 on the ground is really good. DeAndre Hopkins did what he does. 12 targets, 10 catches, 137 yards. Wish he would have added a touchdown. Andy Isabella, I would say this to anybody who is paying attention to the Cardinals receiving core. Christian Kirk is out. So I feel like this Andy Isabella kid may be somebody to pay attention to depending on how long Christian Kirk is out. Other than that, I wouldn't put too much stock in Andy Isabella. He had 4 catches, 47 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the Lions, I mean, I didn't think Galladay would come in and just be like thrown into the fire the way he was. I thought they was gonna
He is
maybe take
back.
a game or two.
He is
Nah, it
back.
didn't take no time. He had seven targets, 6 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. I didn't like Marvin Jones, and I never do. You never hear me talking about Marvin Jones Jr. And he only had 51 yards for 3 catches. Nobody else really did much. Adrian Peterson started off like he was gonna have a monster game on the ground. He had like 50 yards in like the first quarter, and he finished with 75, and he had 22 carries. That's the crazy part. He had 22 carries, finished with 75 yards. I was surprised that he didn't eclipse 100. Hawkinson had a decent game, 53 yards on the ground. I mean, 53 yards in the air, but nothing major out of this game. People thought this was going to be a much higher scoring game. It wasn't as high scoring as people thought, but this next game was Cowboys and Seahawks. It was everything that everybody thought it was going to be and more, even down to the last seconds. Well, Seattle, they be coming through with the last second wins these days. Jeez. This score was 38-31. Seattle came through with the win. Russell Wilson is the MVP, and I think he's going to continue to be the MVP. He's going to win the MVP. I know it's early, but it's happening. He's going to win the MVP.
I'm
Count
not
my words,
smiling
right?
for that
You know
either.
what I'm saying? I'm not sure what you're smiling for, but he's going to win the MVP. You know what I'm saying? It's just a foregone conclusion. Dak Prescott, had a really good game. 472 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Michael Gallup. So everybody was stacking this game, and the more popular stack was Prescott to Cooper or Prescott to CeeDee Lamb, running it back with DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett with Chris Carson. Michael Gallup had 138 yards, 6 receptions, and 1 touchdown. And I don't even know who this Wilson guy is. I don't. I don't know who he is. 107 yards, 5 receptions, 2 touchdowns. Now, Mark Cooper had a good game. He had 86 yards. He had 9 catches.
Yeah, he had
That's not a
a
bad
real game.
game.
He had a real good
You
game.
know, and CeeDee Lamb had 65 yards on 5 catches, 6 targets. Not a bad game either.
Dak spread
You
it
know,
around.
he spread it around. He spread it around with a lot of targets. He threw
The
the
team
ball
Schultz even looked
57
good.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
Schultz
threw
even
about
looked good.
57 times. Yeah, Schultz had 48 receiving yards on 4 catches with 6 targets. So when you throw the ball 57 times, you're going to have a lot of people with a lot of targets. You just expect those targets to go to the
The people you want them to
this
go
could
to.
have been
Right.
this could have been such a smash spot as far as like scores for myself because I had so much Dak Prescott, which was a good thing, so
Right.
much Amari Cooper, so much CeeDee Lamb. I had hardly no Michael Gallup. And I'm
Me
not even
too.
going to talk about Wilson because that just nobody knew this kid was
Nobody
going
had
to have
him.
the game he had.
Nobody
You
had
know what
him.
I'm saying? So he was probably less than 1% on. So
He
I'm
was
not
what
even
I
going to act
expected
like that
CD
was
Lamb to do.
yeah. So I'm not even going to act like that was a mistake. Just nobody knew. But man, I should have had more shares of Michael Gallup. And the reason why I say that is because Michael Gallup has been a part of the offense. He's been getting targeted. Those 3 wide receivers have been heavily targeted both games this year. And I just kind of completely slept on Michael Gallup, and it came to bite me in the ass. And even Ezekiel Elliott, I wasn't big on him. I didn't talk about him that much because he's so high priced and they had so much value. But he actually was he killed your lineup today if you played him
Who
because
is
he only
that?
had Ezekiel Elliott
Okay,
because he
yeah.
only had 34 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown, and in the air he was a non-factor. He had 24 catches, 24 yards for 6 catches, but that wasn't for his price point. That's not nothing that you want to brag about. So he actually hurt you if you played him. And then to the Seahawks. Now that was right. I got that part right.
Now,
you
hey, bro,
know.
that's what I was smiling about. We talked about, before we started the show, having a pick, and you knew for sure you didn't want to wait to talk about them. I got mine too. I
Well, we
just
can
thought
talk
about
about
it.
because I'm
We
because I'm about to
will.
get to that.
Did you
So
watch
let me
that
get to that in a
game?
second. I didn't. I
Okay,
was not able to see that game.
yeah, bruh.
But So before we get to that, because I want to finish this side of the ball, and then we can go to that segment of the show before we close it out. Chris Carson, what did it? So you told me he got hurt. I
Yes, he
didn't I
did
didn't
get
know
hurt
that.
late. He
So
got
he
hurt
had
late.
14 carries, 64 yards. It looked like he was playing decent, but that definitely wasn't enough based off of what you expected him to do. But Metcalf and Lockett, they did not disappoint. Russell Wilson as well, 315 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Should
5 touchdowns.
have been
DK Metcalf,
6.
4 catches off of 8 targets for 110 yards, and Tyler Lockett, 9 catches off of 13 targets for 100 yards. Olsen came today with 61 yards on 5 catches. Uh, and what's crazy is this dude is so efficient, 27 to 40. So efficient, man. Russell Wilson is a beast, bro. I got a story about
Bro.
him real quick. Just
Go
real
ahead.
quick.
Go ahead.
When Russell Wilson was in college, I think he was at Wisconsin. He was a fifth
Yes.
year senior. I remember, and I have no proof to this, but my word, because I didn't say it to anybody. But I've always followed college football, playing daily, just following it. And I remember watching him. I forgot who they played, but he was a fifth year senior. And I was watching the game. I was like, man, this kid is good. I'm surprised nobody is talking about him. And then when he got drafted, and well, not drafted, but then when he was announced that he was starting with Seattle, I was like, I knew this kid was going to be special. I saw how good he could be when he was playing at Wisconsin as a fifth year senior.
He
Because I
looked
remember, and
good.
the reason why I knew he was a fifth year senior is because they were talking about his
Hmm.
road to where he got. They were talking about him being drafted on baseball, playing baseball, and then him coming to Wisconsin because he wasn't in Wisconsin the whole time he was in
Right.
college.
He wasn't.
So I remember seeing that, and I watched that game. I was like, this kid is like amazing,
He was
and
really
look at him
good.
now. And look at him now.
I did not think it would translate into this though. I mean, he
I
was good
felt
at
that
what
way when I
he
saw it.
was good at
Yeah,
Wisconsin, and I was like, dude, who is he? I remember
yeah,
watching the game because they were actually pretty high ranked. I mean, they weren't
yeah,
like top 5, but they were like in the top 10, 15 that year because of
yeah.
him. And I'm like, who is this dude? So I watched a couple of games. They were televised, and I'm like, man, this dude is the truth. And
Yeah.
I forget because they had a really good running back on the team that year too. I can't remember what his name is, but they were a hell of a 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Running read option and stuff. And I just didn't, but I didn't see it translating. And it probably had to do with the stigmatism of his size. He was so small in
And I
college,
think
so
that's what it was. I
that
think
that
that's what it
that did
was
it
as
a
far
lot
as
for
like
me.
scouts. Yeah, I think that's what it was. A lot of like scouts and stuff. That part of it. But when I saw him play, it wasn't that he had a huge stat line. It was how he looked. It was his
Yeah,
poise. Like he looked like he was already a professional playing when he was with Wisconsin. I was like, this dude, like he gonna be good. And when I didn't hear his name, him talked about as the top quarterbacks, I was surprised. But when I heard that he started, and you got to remember, him being announced as a starter was big news because they had just brought in
Matt Flynn.
I forgot Matt Flynn and paid him all that money to
Mm-hmm.
be their quarterback of the future, and he never got to even play a snap because
Right,
Russell Wilson was that good in training camp and took the job.
right.
So, anyways, that's my story about Russell Wilson. I just want to throw that out there because, like, I was not late to the party on him even before he threw his first ball in the NFL. But before we get to what you was talking about, the first game that shows on this list is the Bears and Falcons. Notice I didn't say anything about it, right? I went straight to the Bills and the Rams. There's a reason that I didn't say nothing about the Bears and the Falcons. First, let's run through the game. All right, the Bears beat the Falcons 30-26. Some of you may say, "Oh, I'm not surprised at that. The Falcons are a terrible team. The Bears, they're a pretty decent team. They 3-0. They was 2-0 before the game. Falcons are 0-2. They 0-3, right? Yeah, no big deal." Let's look at the stat line of the Falcons. Matt Ryan, 238 yards, 1 TD. Not that bad. Ty Gurley finally got in the end zone, 80 yards on the ground. Not bad. Brian Hill, 1 yard, 1 touchdown, 58 yards. Calvin Ridley, who has been a beast. Is he better than Julio now? Who knows? No, he's not. But he's been a beast. Another game, over 110 yards, over 100 yards, five catches on 13 targets. Spread the ball around. You look at the Bears, you say Mitchell Trubisky, 13 for 22. You say Mitchell Trubisky was replaced because he was playing so bad. Montgomery didn't do nothing on the ground, 45 yards. Allen Robinson killed it. But you know what? Prior to Trubisky coming out of the game, he wasn't doing anything. They were getting beat. You know what? At the end of the third quarter, the score was 26 to to 3. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. I gotta get this right. I don't want to misspeak at all. I don't want to misspeak at all. So at the end of the third quarter, the score was 26-10. My bad. I took away a touchdown from the Bears. Nick Foles comes into the game at the 6 minute and 20-second mark. He throws a touchdown to Jimmy Graham. No big deal. The game is about to be over. It's 26-10. Literally 2 minutes later, at the 4 minute and 21-second mark, Allen Robinson catches a 37-yard pass from Nick Foles. It's 23-26. Not to mention that Nick Foles' first drive, he threw an interception in the end zone. That was in the third quarter. No, that was still in the fourth quarter. With a minute and 53 seconds left on the clock, Nick Foles throws a touchdown to Anthony Miller. Now the score is 30-26, Chicago. Matt Ryan closed the game off for the interception.
Mhm.
I feel like last week, this time, we were having a very similar conversation about the Falcons winning about 38 to like 20 or something like that in the fourth quarter and let the Dallas Cowboys come back. Like the Falcons, you guys are terrible. You're a different kind of terrible. At least the Jets say we're going to be terrible from the first snap of the game.
Coach gotta go, man. Coach gotta
I mean,
go.
y'all give y'all fans so much hope and then let it all come tumbling down just at the very end. This has to be historical. Like you said,
No, it
earlier
is
talking, not on the
historical.
show. Tell them the stat. Tell them the stat, cuz.
There has not been a team in NFL history to blow two double-digit fourth quarter leads in the same season. Keep in mind, I said in the same season. They've done it in back-to-back weeks. So go ahead and finish.
See, so and I saved this game for last because it goes into our last segment of the day. The Falcons, you gonna hold this L. You gonna hold it for the whole week. I don't even think I'm gonna look for another person to hold this L on Thursday. I mean for Friday's show, because you deserve to have it for the week. You deserve to have it for the month. You guys are terrible, absolutely terrible. Your coach needs to go. I don't know who else to put the blame on. The defense, y'all grown men. Even if the coach is calling the worst defensive plays, when y'all huddle up, y'all should be like, man, I don't know what the hell coach talking about. That shit's terrible. Let's do this instead. Like, I don't even have words. It's ridiculous, man. It's just ridiculous. Falcons hold this L from, and you know what? I'm going to determine whether we need to change the name of the show to like hold this L for the rest of the year for everybody else. And then this L that the Falcons are holding, you keep it for the whole season. Just keep it for the whole season. Because we don't want to take y'all L away. We just want to add to other people that might do some dumb stuff. But y'all keep it for the whole year. Anyway, that's all I got to say, cuz.
Okay. Well, I have a very, very good contender, man, that you are not aware of because you didn't see the game. You would think, and he did. Let's keep in mind, DK Metcalf had a hell of a game today, 4 receptions for 110 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want you to realize something. He had 1 fumble and 1 fumble loss. He should have had 4 receptions for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. You see that 62-yard long? It should have been 63. He caught the pass. He started to put it in one hand at the 1-yard line, celebrating early, and a Cowboy, I think Diggs, come up behind him, knocked the ball out of his hand, and it went out the back of the end zone, and they called it a touchback. Wow. So not only did you get negative 2 points for him fumbling and losing the fumble, you lost 6 points because it was a touchdown. Dude, he was on the one. The dude was 3 yards away from him. He put the ball in one hand and slowed down, and the dude ran up behind him and knocked the ball out of his hand, and it went out the back of the end zone. So I want to add also, if you had Russell Wilson, remember when you said he had 4 touchdowns? I said it should have been 5.
No, he had 5. It should have been 6.
Yeah, it should have been 6. DK Metcalf should have had 2 touchdowns. And keep in mind, I got him in fantasy and had him in DFS. So keep in mind, if you didn't cash by 1 or 2 points and you
I don't
had
even want to go
DK
back and look.
Metcalf, hold this L, bro. You need to hold it for every fantasy player this week who had you and barely lost money. Bro, you'll see it in the highlights. You'll hear about it. You'll see something.
You know,
He did it, bro.
I kind of wish I wouldn't have known, because I'm gonna go back and look, because almost every place I have DK Metcalf, I have him stacked with Russell Wilson, because that's how I play. I stack my quarterback with my receivers like on every lineup,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a ton of DK Metcalf, so that means I got a ton of Russell Wilson. So you talk about a total of 14 points that I missed out on, because when you count the 2 points for the fumble and then the 6 points for the 2 points I lost, then the 6 points that I would have got on the touchdown, and no, not 14, it would have been 12, because 4 points for a touchdown for Russell Wilson. Yeah, if I see how I was out of the money by like 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, 6 points, all the way up to 12, I'm gonna be a little hot, but it is what it is. But yeah, that was
Yep.
definitely a deserving of holding this L.
Very
Anyways,
much.
that's all we got for today. As you can see, it was a very, very eventful Sunday, and we looking forward to another eventful Sunday. But we will be back before Sunday to give you our fantasy picks, and hopefully we can help you win some money. We need to help ourselves win, because I didn't do that
Yes.
great, even though I made some good picks. It's all about putting the right people together on the right team, on the team together. I made plenty of smash picks, but I also put them with people that didn't do well. But
Right.
I guarantee you, if everybody that did good for the most part, besides those fluky plays like Wilson for the Cowboys and stuff like that, I have them. So it's not that the information ain't good. It's just all about putting it together and making sure you get the right plays on the same team. And hopefully y'all did that. That's all we got for today. I'm Capel,
I'm Lonnie.
and this is Hold This L podcast, and we out.
We out.